Hi, I'm Brisha Bowie, founder and CEO of MyElle. I'm here today with Kay Aubrey-Chimene. She's an internationally known bio-nutritional consultant and a light therapy educator who founded and directs Photonic Therapy Institute. As the owner and director of Grand Adventures Ranch, a holistic wellness center, she has developed light therapy and photopuncture protocols for humans and animals that are successfully used internationally by clients and practitioners. Kay has her Bachelor's of Science in Animal Health Sciences from the University of Arizona and completed graduate studies in nutrition, biochemistry, and evolutionary behavior. She is a Reiki master and teacher, as well as a certified light therapy instructor, and holds certificates in bioenergy analysis, kinesiology, equine and canine massage therapy, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, acupressure, and experiential training techniques. So hi, Kay, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Bree. It's fun to be here. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to talk to you.
So Kay, you're a writer, a speaker, and what we love the most at MyElle, you're an educator. So I know you teach internationally. So what do you primarily focus on when teaching?
Well, that's a loaded question, but so I teach two forms of light therapy primarily. I teach to typical saturation of the tissue with light, so photobiomodulation, modulating or balancing the biological processes of the body with light. And then my particular passion is also what we call photopuncture, which is acupuncture with light instead of needles.
Right.
Okay. And that came out of, I started using it for horses back in the early 1990s. And it has grown, and now we teach it for horses and pets and humans. And I've even, lit up a few odd and assorted cows and alpacas and even a dolphin once. So, so what I teach kind of is mostly about ways of using light, especially targeted light.
Right. And so, we often talk about the difference between, LED and laser. Does that kind of play a role in what you're talking about?
Less and less, because more and more the research is showing that the body doesn't care.
Right.
That it cares about what color or wavelength you're using, how much light you're giving, and at what speed you're giving it. Too much, too fast, not enough. Right. So laser was what the industry started with back in the 1960s. But the more we've learned, the more we know the body doesn't care, but the pocketbook does. Laser is usually far more expensive than LED providing the same amount of light. Okay. So I teach, one of the things, we teach a live webinar every Thursday morning called Office Hours. And, one of the topics that we come back to on a fairly regular basis is laser versus LED, because there's a lot of money out there trying to tell people that only laser works, because they have a vested interest. Those manufacturers have a vested interest in trying to convince you that LED doesn't work. And that's changing.
Right. And well, and I think there is a place for laser for class 2, class 3 lasers when you're talking about different types of treatments and like laser hair removal, that kind of thing. LED is not going to do that. But I do think that there just is so much light not being shined on LEDs. my little play on words there. So photopuncture is something you teach internationally as well?
I do. We teach classes. We have students right now. Our photopuncture class yesterday, we had students in Australia, the UK, Canada, the US, and we have students in Mexico and Asia as well, and New Zealand.
That's amazing. So before COVID, you've traveled a lot and done all of that?
Yes, before, COVID kind of shut us down. And the good news was COVID made me sit my butt down and really focus on getting more of our coursework online. Right. So now it's available to people far, far further afield.
Right.
Because to be teaching a class in Australia or the UK, which we've done, it's a lot of work to put enough people into a class to justify that amount of time traveling. So now we're teaching these classes via Zoom and online.
What do you think in everything that you've done, Reiki, with light, like every aspect of your life that you've worked with, how do you feel like it all comes together into what you're doing now?
Well, what it is all morphed to, so Grand Adventures Ranch is our wellness center for animals. We have a equine rehab center, and we work with horses and dogs and other animals. And over the last 25 years, it's all come down to, it doesn't matter whether somebody comes in and says, my horse has cancer, my horse has limonitis, my dog has allergies, whatever the issue is we're dealing with, what it's come to is we always take the same approach: cleanse, nourish, balance. So cleanse, detox, whether that's, we use light to help stimulate the body's ability to clean out the organs of elimination and flush the lymph system. We may do nutritional detox approaches, that sort of things. Nourish, proper biologically appropriate nourishment. So we don't feed dogs, an only vegetarian diet, because Mother Nature said dogs need meat and bone and all of those things. We don't feed horses meat, right? So biologically appropriate diet. But one of the big nutritional aspects that keeps getting lost, especially for humans, is light. Light is a nutrient. So in that nourish, providing enough light, and then balance. So balance, we use the photopuncture, the targeted light to balance the acupuncture meridians. And we use, whether it's chiropractic adjustments, either with light or with a chiropractor, or physical balance, energetic balance, emotional balance. So we shoot for that cleanse, nourish, balance. Reiki may come into it, nutrition comes into it, detox comes into it, but it all comes back to really keeping it simple: cleanse, nourish, balance, in a budget for that person.
Cleanse, nourish, balance. I love that. That's great. And that I think just says it all for any aspect of life, because I always speak about, having a well-rounded health, not just, and that's why we're doing these podcasts and we're doing these videos, because we want to provide other views for people on how to have a balanced lifestyle in their health, not just from light. Yes, we love light, but there's a lot of things that goes into it. You can't just use light and eat burgers and go through drive-throughs every day, So you have to have,
if you live at McDonald's, the light's not going to provide all the nutrition you need. That's right.
Right, exactly. You're kind of spinning your wheels. So like drink enough water. I mean, all of those things come into play. So I love how your sort of journey you've incorporated all of that with just not only your education, but in your teachings and everything that you're doing. So balance.
It really all came out of first having to save a horse, and then the horse saving me, because my health in my 30s, I stood up and my foot broke. Wow. I was so brittle and so arthritic. My hands were starting to curve. I was starting to look like my grandmother by 32. I was hunched over. I'd stopped riding. And I had a heart horse come into my life, and I had to figure out what to do for him. And that attracted the things that I needed to learn for me. And he's now a 40-year-old, perfectly happy, healthy pasture pony right outside my window. So we've come on this journey together.
Wow, what a great story. I mean, you helping animals, I know it's a little off topic of what we're trying to talk about here, but I think it goes together so well. Animals are so healing for humans. I know my little rescue puppy saved me a bunch.
Oh yeah.
So that's
we're all animals. We're all animals. And quite frankly, a lot of us will do something for our animal where we might not invest in ourselves. My first light therapy tools were for that horse, not for me. Wow. I didn't even tell my husband what I put on the credit card to try to save that horse from something. And it was him teaching me cleanse, nourish, balance that brought me on this journey. That's what made me a Reiki master. That's where I went and learned holistic nutrition. I have a degree in animal health sciences and nutrition from the University of Arizona. I had to unlearn it. It was completely based on feedlot cattle. It didn't make any kind of nutritional or biologically appropriate sense. And so, what we will do for our animals or our children or our others, healers very rarely put themselves first. And so, this has been very common in the students that we have and my team members. We all came to it first for someone or some critter outside of ourselves.
And they teach us, I think, if we're open to it, they
Yep.
teach us how to take care of ourselves if we just listen. I talked about that yesterday. I know it's that whole, put the oxygen mask on yourself first if you're with your child on a plane, right? But
Yep.
it's
Yep.
so true. But that's great that you can, and I'm sure you have a lot of people that bring their animals to you and you have that same conversation with them about
Over and over. Yeah. And even with the MyElle, which you would think of as a very, very personal object, right? Many of the MyElles that we have sold have been a husband or partner buying it for their wife because she wouldn't do it for herself.
Right.
A mother buying it for her daughters. I had one woman buy them for all her daughters.
That's amazing.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after she bought them for the daughters and then came back to one of the webinars where we were talking about, private help. And she went, I guess I really need to get one for me.
You're like, hello.
Then she would do it, right? Her daughters are like, yes, mother, you need one for Mother's Day.
That's interesting. And so beyond just educating, your average person out there that really knows nothing about light, do you find that you get a lot of doctors and stuff that are researchers, people like that know nothing about light, that are just sort of getting into learning about it?
That's growing as Photonic Therapy Institute gets better known.
Yeah.
We are members of WALT and NALT, which are the World and the North American Associations of Photobiomodulation. And so that brought scientists and researchers who already knew light, but had no idea that there was anything like a light therapist with an office in the street, right? So that made them more aware of what light could do. But now we're seeing more dentists, veterinarians, physical therapists, massage therapists, and now that's growing more into practitioners. We're encouraging our clients to push their doctors to learn, go and say, I want to add light to what I'm doing for my neuropathy. And the doctor said, well, I don't know anything about that. You can't do that. That might harm something. And what we're doing is providing them with a research library where they can say, no, see, here's all kinds of research showing why I should also be doing this. So we're pushing the doctors. In the United States, doctors are less likely to know about light therapy than they are in Europe or Brazil or Australia. Sure. Other countries are not quite as owned by big pharma.
Yeah.
So they're less likely to immediately go for a pill.
Well, and I think the empowerment of, the internet just in general, and all the, sort of avenues we have to educate the customer now. And that's huge because we want to empower, for us personally, women in particular, to take charge of their own body and their own health so that they can go advocate for themselves with a solid feeling of, I know what I'm talking about. I did research on this. So I love that you do that. And I love that you have those office hours to teach people, just so they can empower themselves with light in general overall. But you don't just work with light. Obviously you have other things that you work with. What are some of the other tools that you like to use?
Well, obviously nutrition is huge. I've been working with the same company for nutritional products since the early 90s. They were really what taught me about detox and nutrition and so on. Just little farmers out of Idaho that have been doing phenomenal nutritional products since the 1980s. I work with ozone a bit. I work, obviously still Reiki is a part of everything I do. I think that energy awareness makes us, it just turns up the dial on the radio. You can tune in better.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of muscle testing and kinesiology. I really want to empower my students and instructors to make energetic decisions. Do I use this product or this product? Do I activate this acupoint or this acupoint based on what the body says? Yes, I need that. So we teach a lot of energetic testing.
What does that mean exactly? Like, what do they do to test that or figure that out?
Well, you may have seen commercials, even jokes referring to going to a chiropractor and they'll have your arm out and they'll test.
The arm thing. Yes,
right,
yes. I've seen that.
Right. It is a misnamed thing called muscle testing. You're not really testing the muscle, you're testing the speed with which the brain gets the notice to stay strong or weak. All right. But it's an energetic resonance testing. It's a very simple form of what is called kinesiology, where you can activate a specific muscle or a specific point and see if that makes the body go weak or strong.
Right.
So one of the easiest ways to teach is what's called a sway test. And you'll take something and see if it makes you strong or weak. And if it makes you strong, if it strengthens your magnetic field, your electromagnetic field, it will pull you toward it. If it weakens you, it'll push you back. So you'll have people stand and just see, they put something like at their solar plexus, and do they fall forward or fall back? Then it moves on. You'll see people doing these kinds of tests where they link their fingers and see, does it stay strong or come weak? There are a variety of ways of doing it. I was taught to use my forefinger instead of sticking my arm out and having somebody push on it. I was taught to use my forefinger in the same way. So this is my arm, and I'm pushing on it for myself with my other finger.
Interesting.
We help people find the way that they can tune in to their own body's yes and no answers, and then how to ask better questions. So that is a side thing, but I've been working with muscle testing now for about 30 years, and it just speeds everything up. So that's another tool we use a lot of.
Because you can get the answer quickly, and then you can find sort of where it needs to be, what they need to focus on.
Right. So if somebody, you can never really ask the body to heal 10 things at one time, right? You got to give it priorities. If you have somebody with a weak heart, you don't want to be strengthening their muscle tissue by making them go out and run a 10K if they're going to have a heart attack, right? You've got to prioritize and triage that. So we will literally, the sicker someone is, the fewer things we'll focus on at one time, and we'll narrow it down. Do we focus on cardiovascular? Do we focus on immune system? Do we focus on hydration? Do we focus on better sleep? What can we focus on first that will make the best difference in this person's health? Or where do we shine our light? How do we do it? Should we be putting the body into a parasympathetic state? Should we be getting rid of their initial pain or itching so that their quality of life improves enough that they keep going?
Yeah. And
that just helps us make those determinations, and we empower the client to do that so they are more empowered about their own health. Our goal is self-empowerment. That's really our key.
We're on the same page. Well, you're layering, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, people don't get to their state of illness. And usually as humans, we wait until we can't walk or we have such a horrible feeling, then we try and find a way to fix it. Or, most people just take pills. They go to the doctor and the doctor masks it with a bunch of pills. So, and then that's a whole other cycle that they have to break and get out of. So I appreciate that you're layering sort of their care and empowering them at the same time through the process. But I mean, do you find people are, because we're in a generation now where we click a button and the thing shows up at our door. Do you find that people are looking for quick fixes and are in a rush? And what would your advice be to them on that, about light and natural ways of healing?
Well, yes, of course, people always want instant results. So what do you have to do? You have to get their pain down, right? Yeah. That's what they're responding to first, is the pain. And we've seen a huge growth in the light therapy industry in the last 5 years for panels. I'm going to stand in front of this big light source for 6 minutes a day and I'll be good. Well, yes, it will give you that nutrient of light. That's going to help. But it's not targeting and telling the brain to repair this bad muscle or regenerate this nerve. So the more we target, the better the response we get. So my biggest advice to people is always, again, we start with cleanse, nourish, balance, right? And cleanse means detoxing the body and if you try to detox, if you've ever heard the term of a Herx reaction, somebody tries to detox too fast and they get so sick, they get headaches, they get hives, they get whatever, they detox too fast. That's a Herx reaction. So we always tell, this is when we're talking about those big light panels. If you go stand in front of those panels and you have a lot of toxicity in your body, you've now given every cell in your body the energy to just kick out all of those waste materials, and you're going to get sick and you're not going to stick with it. You're going to hate it. So start slow. First, open up just the lymph drainage. And one of the beautiful things about like working with the MyElle is that it's putting light right into a center of where we have a lot of lymph nodes and lymph drainage in our body. If we can get healthy lymph drainage going before we start letting all of the body detox or triggering all of the body to detox,
right,
we are cleaning out the drain field before we flush the toilet.
yes.
If you've ever had clogged pipes and you flush the toilet, you know it's a problem. Well, that's what a Herx reaction is. You flush the toilet and that waste material has nowhere to go. So we start people by flushing out the lymph system first. And we can do that with light in the armpits, in the groin, behind the knees, in the areas with the most concentration of lymph nodes. Big one behind the head.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then going and addressing the neuropathy or the torn muscle or the brain issue, whatever it is we're working on. So my biggest thing with people is start with lymph and really open up the pathways, the drain field, the pipes before you give a ton of light to the body.
Well, and exercise, I mean, because I had a business before where I did, whole body vibration was incorporated in it. And we would do light and then whole body vibration to start stimulating the lymphatic system.
Nice.
And then put them in the infrared sauna to detox them. And, that 3-step process was great. People felt so good because we were kind of hitting the layers of everything with different wavelengths and light. But then some people, they would get sick or get headaches. And they would just expect quick results. And it's like, no. I mean, you didn't get this way overnight. You're not going to fix it overnight. So,
and the longer you've been sick and the sicker you are, this is hard for people to hear. The slower you have to go.
Yeah.
The more water you have to drink. You have to put down the soda, put down the sugar, put down the processed foods and the wheat and the chemical preservatives, and go slow.
Right. And a lot of it's mental, right? You have to
sure
work on that. So I like Reiki involved with that. I know I do Reiki consistently because it's important to keep everything in balance. And it's a constant adjustment. That's what people don't realize either. Like, oh, I'm going to be fixed like a pill where you take a pill and your headache goes away. It's like, no, you have to constantly adjust yourself as your hormones change, as you get older. Maybe you get in an accident, maybe you fall, maybe you roll your ankle. I mean, there's things in life that are going to happen. You're not always going to be that person, right?
And if you've had any chronic pain, if you've been in pain for more than 30 to 90 days, it rewrites the brain pathways and you'll get stuck in a sympathetic or fight or flight mode. We can't heal chronic issues in sympathetic. We have to shift into a parasympathetic state, into rest and digest. You don't get into REM sleep. You don't get into the regenerative processes if you can't get into parasympathetic. So we teach people to use light to shift into parasympathetic very quickly. Yes. Well, I often do that before doing anything else in an entire session.
Interesting. So, okay, so I know that we are talking about humans and light and everything, but I know that most people are going to be like, what? She works with animals and she works with light and heals animals. And I know they think that's really cool because you touched on it a little bit, but can you elaborate like some fun stories or some great healing stories you have with some animals that have touched you, other than obviously your story with your horse? But
well, he was really, like I said, he was my teacher. He's what brought me to this. And this horse was the spitting image of the little Arabian horse that I had when I was 12 that I showed for years, and he was my competition. And I was very competitive as a teenager. I went and I did Western riding and dressage riding and saddle seat. And, I wanted the trophies. Well, when I moved, and this was a horse that I got, like I said, when I was in my 30s, and he was the same bloodlines, looked identical, but he had weird autoimmune diseases. And then I took him out, I was doing an endurance ride, and he bowed both front tendons. That means he completely separated, ripped in half the suspensory ligaments in both front legs. Wow. And there were 2 vets at the endurance ride, and they took a look at him and they said, put him down, ride him again. He'll be paying the rest of his life. Pick out a halter to bury him in.
Jeez.
I was crushed.
No kidding.
And I got home, and luckily I had a very holistic vet who came out, and she did ultrasounds on him. And it turned out he had old scar tissue, old bows. And this is why this had happened, that his legs were full of scar tissue, and it didn't allow those ligaments to really move the way they should. And so it ripped apart during this 50-mile ride. So I felt so guilty that this had happened. I went out, and she had said, typically with bow tendons, if you're going to save the horse, you put him in a 10-by-10 stall for 6 months and let him heal. They just become insane. This horse stays in this tiny little space, and you try to keep them from killing themselves and everybody around them. And then when you're done, you try to go in and get those ligaments and tendons working again. But she said, I was reading about these light therapy wraps. This is 1994, 94, 95. She says, I was reading about these light therapy wraps. They had just come on the market. And she says, I think we should try them. So I went and I ordered these wraps, and we put him on a very alkaline diet. I had him on cat's claw and so cat's claw and aloe vera and so on, things that were very alkaline and would help regenerate him. And his legs were, the bow means that the back of the leg is all bowed out with this ripped tendon, right? It's ripped apart. So they call it a bow because it looks like a big C. And at 30 days, I called her and I said, you need to come back out and do new ultrasounds. And she said, well, it's way too early. I said, no, the leg is flat. I need to see what's going on. I had a science background, right? So it's like, okay, so she comes out and she does new ultrasounds. And she says, I can't believe this. All but one pinpoint hole of collagen, all the new tendon is there. And you've broken down 60 or 70% of all this old scar tissue.
Wow.
Maybe it was 80. It was a lot. Most of the scar tissue was gone. And I went, really? I says, okay. So I had permission at 30 days to start hand walking this horse. This just doesn't happen. Okay. So 30 days, we go out, and I started, the first day was 5 minutes, and the next day was 6 minutes, and the next day was 7. We just added 1 minute a day. And at 90 days, there were no scar tissue in his legs. He had fully regenerated them. And I said, but I'm going to stay off of him for the full 6 months. We started ponying him, putting him behind another horse and getting him out, because he was hating being in a 10-by-10 stall.
Right.
At 6 months, we started riding him. At a year, he went back and finished that same ride.
Wow.
His legs are gorgeous. I mean, he's blind as a bat. Well, he's deaf as a post, and he has no peripheral vision. Now, right. He's 40. He's got like 3 teeth left in his head, but he's completely healthy. He still thinks he's a stallion and all that, and tries to convince the mares nearby that he's worth their time.
He's viable.
And he was my miracle horse. He came back from these bow tendons, and so that's what made me start looking at using light. And he's had all kinds of different issues. He's taught me about autoimmune diseases. He taught me about ulcers. He taught me about, open sores in the mouth from losing a tooth. And then we bought this ranch in 2005. We bought an old historic horse ranch, and he kind of has been the grandfather that's watched out on everybody. And we've worked with horses with DSLD. We've worked with many, many horses and dogs with cancer, lots of course of laminitis and founder and things like that in the horses, and dogs with allergy problems, seizures, wow. All of those things. So yeah, it's been quite a process, and the human stuff came out of it about 2012. I really started moving into the human world and became a certified light therapist for humans. And then we started moving our course for horses into animals and humans.
Well, it's similar. I mean, there's so much similarity.
The body responds, living tissue responds like living tissue to light.
Exactly. Well, and I think for the MyElle, that's why what you were talking about, tissue regeneration and cell regeneration, right, of the horse. But I mean, internally, when women have, C-sections and all of these things, that all this trauma right. down there in our body, I mean, that's huge for it. So, I mean, but look, it took your horse a year of consistently, slowly getting better. So, I mean, that's definitely a message in itself.
And what part of the, women, our tissue, our vaginal lining doesn't get any light, right? And
Yeah.
so I think one of the reasons we've seen such fast response for
Yes.
people using the MyElle is that it's an area that is so energy deficient. Those photons provide the energy for the cells to do what they need to do, right? And so if you are deficient in nutrition and deficient in energy throughout your body, especially where you have no light in the vaginal cavity, and you add light to that, we're seeing dramatic responses to things, which really blew my mind when we first looked at your product.
Yeah.
Because it was, okay, yeah, we've used our torches for cervical warts and some different things in that genital region, but they weren't really designed to go into the vagina.
Right.
We've used a fiber optic probe and things like that, but boy, just using the probe that could go all the way in with that wand, we've had a number of testimonials come back with single, 1, 2, 3 uses, huge changes in health.
Yeah, I know. And just a couple of uses, it blows my mind too, honestly, because I mean, I've been using the wand for years and years, obviously, and I've had so many great successes myself, but not as dramatic issues. Like some people have more dramatic pain issues
Right.
and, bacterial issues and stuff. So the biggest surprise for me, because I've always worked with red light and infrared, but blue light was fairly new for me. And I've seen it cure like cystic acne and things like that. But with the bacteria response has just been mind blowing for me. I can't believe it. So it's exciting. I love it. I love light. So what, just to sum everything up, what does light mean to you? And that can be, physically, emotionally, but, more emotionally, because we obviously heard a lot about the physical.
Empowerment.
Yeah.
With light, I don't have to, if I want to have an acupuncture session, I don't have to go to somebody and have needles put in my body. I can do it for myself. If I sprain my ankle, I can throw light on it and be up and on my foot in a day or two without having to go and have it wrapped and take pain meds. And I live an hour and a quarter from a doctor.
Right.
Right. To me, it means that I can take care of my animals, my husband, my situation. I have my first line of defense right there. I never go anywhere without a couple of torches in my wallet, in my pocketbook, in my purse.
Yeah.
I usually have a pad or two with me. Light to me is empowerment.
That's great. I love that. Light is empowerment. So where can people find you? How can they learn more from you?
Well, Photonic Therapy Institute.com. That's our major website. And we are a membership group. So we have people we have a free membership called the Candle, and people can come to our weekly webinars for free by signing up as a Candle. You sign up for office hours. They can send me an email, K-A-Y at Photonic Therapy Institute. We also have a Facebook page, and you can message us through Facebook, Photonic Therapy Institute. We have a LinkedIn page. The day of social media, we're pretty accessible. I think we also have Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter, but I'm not the one that interacts with those quite as much.
Right.
But if you have questions, Kay at photonictherapyinstitute.com.
That's great. If anyone has questions, photonictherapyinstitute.com, and we'll put that in this video. And then we'll also, you can find Kay and all of her links on our professionals page on our site as well, myellevibe.com, and go straight to the source, because she definitely is the main source for light education in this world. So thank you, Kay. Thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And I know everyone is going to be so excited to hear everything you have to say on light. It's just a huge thing that you're doing. So
thank you. I'm delighted to do it. I found my passion. I don't plan on retiring. This is something I love to do.
Yes, and it shows. You definitely work a lot. I can tell. I can say from experience every time you answer quickly.
Well, thank you, dear. And I do have a team, so it helps. I'm not a one-man band.
Yes, and a great team too. They're amazing. So, well, have a great day, Kay. Thank
You
you.
too, Bree. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.